Welcome back to another episode of Thriving Thoughts. I'm your host, Dr. Sherri. We've got a special episode today just for you from my new friend Kayla, who is a missionary to Southeast Asia. And for safety reasons, we are not including Kayla's last name. She is currently actually in the States because she just lost her mom to cancer. And so on today's episode, Kayla is going to get frank and real and raw with us as she talks about fear, beauty, and yes, Jesus. She talks about how her biggest fear actually came true. So for those of you listening who are thinking, I have this huge fear and what if it comes true? Well, it happened to Kayla. And she's got some eternal perspective to offer you. And one of the most beautiful things that I love is that she shares how Jesus is a real man on a real throne, a real person waiting to talk to you, waiting to guide you through the darkest times, to allow you to see beauty even in the face of your fear. So please lean in, listen, and learn from my young, wise friend, Kayla. All right, my friend Kayla, thank you so much for being on the show. It's a pleasure to have you this morning.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on.
You're so welcome. Where are you? Where am I seeing you from today?
Right now I'm in Pennsylvania. Yes.
Oh, me too. I just moved. What part?
On South Central.
Okay. All right. That's where I am too. So I'm loving it here. And actually, so I moved and my office is now in this like beautiful sunroom. It has like 7 windows and it's so gorgeous, and I can hear crickets outside right now. So we're going to see if my microphone is sensitive enough to pick it up. You know, not crickets or what, I don't know, whatever's making noise, whatever's like chittering in the morning. So, but it's so beautiful, and I have all the windows open, and I'm just so excited. It's a beautiful day. It's going to be a little warm, but so good to have you. So, Kayla, I'm going to dive right in, and I'm going to ask you, because the theme of this season is, what are you thriving in the thick of? And, a lot of times it's easy for us to talk about stuff that's like, we feel like is resolved and done and gone and, you know, but it's really difficult to talk about the places that we're in and how we're choosing to thrive in the difficult places in the thick of it. And so my question to you is, what are you thriving in the thick of right now?
Yeah, I think, when we've all found ourselves in quite an interesting situation in these times. But currently for me, just the things that, you plan so long for, are not happening currently.
Mm-hmm.
And things that you would have never expected. So personally for me, just got done of a brutal, couple months of caregiving for my mom who passed away mid-July from, stage 3C ovarian cancer. And so it's a pretty intense journey because essentially near the end, she just couldn't eat anything anymore. So you're just there with her every day. Yeah, taking care of her. And yeah, I mean, I'm just 25, and so trying to figure out that of something that you never expected that you'd have to do at such a young age.
Yeah.
But at the same time, in the midst of that, of really finding moments of beauty throughout the day.
Yeah.
And just being refreshed. Though the caretaking journey is extremely tiring, painful, traumatic.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so much to dive into there, Kayla. Thanks for sharing that with us. And I'm so sorry for your loss. And just it's like, it's one of those things where we know that loss is like a part of our earthly existence, right? Yeah. But it certainly doesn't ease the blow, and it doesn't ease the pain of seeing but your mom, let's just say specifically your mom, of seeing your mom in pain, of seeing your mom decline, of watching this firsthand. So can you take us back, if you'd be willing to go back with me, to when you learned of the cancer diagnosis and kind of just what was your thought process then? Because I think it's different for a lot of people. I know that cancer affects everyone I've ever met has been affected in some way, right? By the sickness of cancer. And so for you, I'm just curious to know if you'd let us inside your mind about where you were at and where your head was at when you got the news.
Yeah, for sure. So at this point in time, I was living in Colorado, doing kind of like a frontier missions kind of program.
Okay.
And so at that point in time, I was in community, and Mom had been wanting to talk to me, and literally, I think I had maybe 2 to 3 weeks before I was about to leave for Southeast Asia. And so Mom and I call, and then she says, hey, I have stage 3C cancer. And then, we've never had anyone in our family really have that kind of news before. So figuring out what does 3C mean, and
right,
stages, right, and all of that kind of stuff. So, but Mom and I had a conversation, and she said immediately, hey, there's nothing more that I want you to be doing than sharing the love of Jesus with people who have no access and know the name of Jesus. So she's like, I want you to still go. And so
can you, Kayla, back up for just a second for our listeners? Give us a little insight. What do you do? What was your mom referring to?
Right. Yes. So after graduating from college, I did some relief work. And then really in college, I just received this huge heart and passion from the Lord to go and fulfill the Great Commission. It's the call of every believer to go into the nations and make disciples. And for me, personally, these missional filmmakers came to my campus and showed these films called Life in the Himalayas. And during those movies, I was just weeping for souls, specifically in that nation. And I just felt an invitation from the Lord of, hey, Kayla, the harvest is right there. Will you go? So with how my degree program worked out, I was able to go for my internship. And basically what I was doing then is what I'm doing now, though with COVID, I'm here. And then also with having to come back, take care of my mom, I've been here too. So that's also what I'm in the thick of, is having that piece of the story be on hold right now, something that I've looked forward to since 2014. And have been on and off the field, but now, waiting it out here.
Now on the bench. So you're sidelined for a couple of reasons. One, or maybe it's just one or the other, but one, because of what was going on with your mom and your mom passing away, and two, because of COVID?
Yes, correct. Yep. Okay. The borders had shut down, or were going to shut down. And at this point, Mom was starting to decline, but she still had quite, a couple months or so. But I'm so thankful I left, because there are no flights going in or out anymore. So I wouldn't have been able to be here.
So you would have been stuck. So what led you to go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to come home so I'm not stuck?
Right. Yeah, I think it was just, I don't know, you're just led by moments of peace, I guess, along the way and along the journey. And so I knew that the time was imminent, and I just felt I need to leave. So, and I think along that, you have to think through, okay, what will I regret down the road? If I wasn't there when my mom died, how would I deal with that moving forward? And so that is something That was a big driving factor in
Yeah.
decision making too.
Now, Kayla, do you have siblings?
Yes, I have 2 older sisters.
Okay,
Yep.
so 3 girls. You're the youngest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And so have all of you been in this caregiving role during this time?
Yeah, we definitely have shared, especially in the last, the final month of sharing that burden together. But I'm in an interesting situation as I'm single and I live in another nation, and so
Yeah.
I'm living at home with my parents. And so just living in the house where mom was. And so I didn't really have a way to.
You didn't have relief from that.
I didn't have any relief, period.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
a little different.
Yeah, for sure.
Spouses and a house.
Mm-hmm. So can you share with us some of the, I want you to highlight a couple of things because, there's a lot of people, believers, and I would say, cautious believers, people who want to believe and, in times of distress like this, like something with your mom, they will pray, right?
Yeah.
And they will say, please help me, Lord. And so I want you to touch on a couple of things. One, I want you to touch on the darkest places for you, if you would, and kind of just be as transparent as you can about that, because I think it's really important that we're able to share our fears, the fears that we have in our human minds, because other people aren't alone in that. Yeah. And then 2, like, what are some of the things you prayed for, and how do you navigate when your prayers either aren't answered or aren't answered in the way that you want them to be answered?
Right. Yeah. Along the lines of about the praying, because we can pray for healing, have complete faith for that.
Yeah.
And I think, even in families, each family member is so different, right? And so there's, you have to hold the tension of, yes, Lord, like I have faith that you can heal, but I also have faith that no matter the outcome, you're still God, you're still on your throne, and you're still going to be the shepherd of my heart, be the shepherd of my soul, and guide me through the valley of the shadow of death, because that is the plight of all humans, right?
That's right.
Fragile. We're all going to die. How depressing that sounds, but it's a part of life. And I think what sets Christians apart, followers of Jesus apart, is we have hope beyond, right?
Yeah.
We have hope of eternity with Jesus.
Yeah.
And I think what really, in the super dark places, because I live in a nation where less than, I think, 3% follow Jesus. And there's no access to the gospel. So that in of itself is a very dark place, pioneering place. And so how do you hold on to light? Or it's looking to the word, looking to the Bible. Like one passage as I was overseas that it just was so meaningful to me was how the passage of God being the Father of lights, how there's no shifting shadow in him. Right. And so just using these truths that we have in the word and turning that back to Thanksgiving of, Lord, I thank you that you're the Father of lights, that you're radiant in light, that Jesus, that right now you're a real man seated on the throne, and that you have real eyelashes, real hair, just so real fingernails. Like he's a real man.
Yeah.
And fully man, fully God, and he's seated on a throne somewhere,
Yeah. Right.
in heaven. But he's promised to come back and make the wrong things right again. And so holding on to that eternal perspective, that eternal hope, really roots you and grounds you in seasons of intense unknowing, fear and uncertainty. So having those to anchor us in and to also turn into Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, being thankful is a huge key to not drowning.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely. So with your mom, what were some of the fears and doubts that you had to learn to speak promise over and turn into Thanksgiving?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm an Enneagram 9.
Okay.
So my biggest fear is loss.
Okay.
And so honestly, my biggest fear to moving to the field was literally that my mom would get sick and die, or one of my family members.
Before this ever happened?
Yes.
This was your biggest fear?
Biggest fear.
Oh my, okay. So we need to dive into this because here's the thing. I think, so one of the things that I always say to people is if you have a big fear, that the key to getting around that in your thought world is to answer your fears.
Yeah.
Right? It's okay. So what if that does happen? Then, what will happen from there? So, with that in mind, so here's your biggest fear. I wonder, did you answer that beforehand, or did you just kind of let it linger and then bam, there it was?
Well, I think it was more of a bam, here it is.
Okay.
But in like the Lord's perfect timing. And that's the thing, like we're all on a journey of following the Lamb. We're on a journey of following Jesus. And so, it's not our life to live. It's, we have to lean in, hear his voice, and be led by him. And so for me, I was in a kind of another season of unknowing of my different roles of work that I had done with a INGO that I just loved had ended, and then I was kind of like stuck of like, okay, now what's next? And so I was just like, okay, I guess I just felt the Lord say just rest. So I rested. And then those were some super dark nights of the soul because you don't have a job to find your identity in. Yes. You don't have a school or a degree program to find your identity in.
That's right. You find yourself in the alone spaces.
Yeah, completely bare, alone, super dark. And then also like this fear of like, Lord, like I know you've called me to move to a land that has, less than 3% believers, some less than 1%. I know you called me to move to those places, but I'm scared that one of my family members are going to die and I won't be here. One of those things. So that was always kind of in the back, maybe a little subconsciously. But then when I went to Colorado to do this frontier like missions program, and their big thing was prayer and worship, and also teaching of just really strong biblical teaching of the humanity, the lordship of Jesus. So holding both ends, that Jesus is a real man and also that he's Lord, that he's the anointed one, and just having that anchor, and then also alongside that being in a prayer room, I think it was around 20 hours a week,
Wow.
6 a.m. to 10. I think it's till 10 or 11.
So, okay. So for most of us, Kayla, that's like
terrible.
Well, no, unfathomable.
Yes.
Right. It's not, it is just not, I think and I would venture to say, and I don't know, because nobody knows anybody's hearts. But I would venture to say that the majority of people living, particularly in the Western Hemisphere, who go about our days and our lives and our work and blah, 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 who are not dedicated missionaries, right? Mm-hmm. That our prayer life is probably, good morning. Thank you, Lord, for this wonderful day. Help me to have a great day. And then at the end of the day, thank you so much for everything, or the prayer before the meal or whatever. And so I just, what is that like to be in a prayer room for 4 hours?
Yeah, I mean, it is honestly so powerful. Like, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., it's just like a devotional set. So someone's like at the piano and just singing like the word, like singing a psalm, or it's so beautiful. And so just having that of really centering, because I think as you're in the thick of it, you learn to really, you have to experience the beauty around you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You have to breathe when we're so stressed out and experiencing very traumatic things.
Yes.
Our heart rate rises and
yes.
our breathing becomes less deep. And so just recognizing. And so in the prayer room, you're also learning like just to sit and to be still. Because in our culture, we want to do.
Yes. That's so good.
It doesn't even, our culture doesn't even give us permission to heal. I mean, if someone in your family dies, you get like one week? Maybe?
Well, it's so this is funny, Kayla, that you bring that up. Not funny, but it's so true, particularly in Western culture. I think that's something that Eastern cultures have like
very long extended time,
a better grasp on the fact that mourning is a process. It's not something you get over. It's not, okay, they're buried and now we should just go on about life. It's a piece of us. It's literally an extension of us that's missing. Yeah. And so there is actually, which I disagree with a lot of what's in the DSM, but in the DSM, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, and it's like, 5th going on 6th revision. There is actually a bereavement disorder, like if you're doing it wrong. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, like
I think we probably have that because our culture,
right,
has that in its
right. So okay, I don't mean to derail you there, but
right.
So you had this experience that really, in the mission field, helped to ground you and helped you to learn to be still. Yeah. So how did that prepare you for those dark moments with your mom?
Well, really, I mean, in those still moments, you're available. And so the Lord really speaks into those fears. And then it's just you in there and your Bible and the person leading the worship set. And so you, just reading the Bible cover to cover. I got to do that twice in like 6 months.
Wow.
The course of just doing that.
Yeah.
And so that was literally life transforming in and of itself. Because you just see like the overall grand narrative of the Bible. You notice that, wow, the Israelites were constantly on the move. They're the most they suffered a lot. And,
yes, they did.
Right? Yeah. And I think it's so interesting in our culture and especially like American Christianity, how, you can't suffer. In our culture, in our culture,
well, and even,
or it's just like you want things quickly.
Yeah.
so we just have this thing to appease pain or keep pain, like not even feel pain. Yeah. And I think pain really is a gift, because pain, I don't know, in the moments of pain, you have like 2, maybe 3 options. Okay. So 1, leaning into the pain with the Lord. Yes. Or 2, oh, this really stinks, God, like, I hate you, going the other way. Mm-hmm. Or just being in the middle and kind of being numb. And so I think for me, I realized, wow, Jesus, like, this is so painful, but you're so close and so near. And like, here I am, I'm leaning into you. Thank you that you hold me. Thank you that you are, I can climb up into a cleft on the side of the rock and just find rest there, like Elijah, And so I think remembering the overall grand narrative of, wow, the Israelites were quite the people that suffered. Jesus suffered a lot. Even Mary and Joseph on the journey of having Jesus, they suffered a lot. Yeah. And Jesus' disciples suffered a lot. Yeah. Jesus promised, like, hey, you're following me, like, there will be suffering. It's just a part of the package,
Yeah. Well, and I think also in our human frailty, there is inherent suffering in that, because of the frailty of our, not just our physical flesh, but our minds. We're constantly supposed to be transforming our minds, and that's a battle. That's why I do what I do. That's why I talk about thriving thoughts. And so, when you talk about pain being a gift, yes, I 100% agree. I call those 3 options 3 different things. I call leaning into the pain and trusting that God can purpose this pain. Not that it happened in order to do something, but it happened, and so it can do something, right? Yes. Yeah. So there's that's thriving. And then there's the numb, which is just surviving, right? Yeah. And then there's the anger and the frustration, which is struggling.
For sure.
Right. So we just call them 3 different things.
Too.
Yeah. So, but I really appreciate, I'm struck by how you said American Christianity, because I think a lot of times too, what I hear within the church, and maybe we'll have some listeners that are, churched, I say churched people that are familiar with the American church process or have been engaged in that for some time. But I have heard a lot of times when people are struggling with something, either in their minds or in the flesh, I've heard Christians say, well, have you given your life to the Lord? And there's something about that just really grates me, because God didn't promise that once you start following me, you're going to be perfect. He says, I am perfecting you. That's That's a process. You're not going to be perfect until that moment.
Right. He comes back and we're with him where he is. Yeah.
Right. And so I think it's the ability then, when we can recognize pain as a gift, that we can recognize the pain in others as a gift, and not so badly just want to wish it away, just want to sweep it under the rug, just want to get rid of it, that we can appreciate it, and it gives us the opportunity for compassion and love even more.
Yes. Yes. That's so good. And I think especially as you do see others, as you see others going through similar things of I guess in the caretaking journey, and you haven't done it yourself, be very careful to speak.
Yes, say this. Say what you're going to say, Kayla. Do it.
Yeah, be very careful to speak, because I recognize it's incredibly probably awkward and hard. And so you feel nervous. You want to say something, but what comes out of your mouth is not is not always good.
It's not helpful.
Yeah, it isn't helpful. Mm-hmm. And so honestly, actions speak a lot louder than words. Is a good go-to. And then
so Kayla, can you share with us a couple of examples? And we're not here to lambast anybody for sure, but but people can relate to this and they need to hear, like, what are some examples and how did you choose to respond to that in the moment?
Yeah. I think a few that I've gotten is, this is my mom. She is a believer, loved Jesus so much. One of my heroes for sure. And so one thing people would say is, oh, it must have been really precious for you to be there, like when she died. Because the whole people think it's so mystical when people die, which isn't the case, the case at all. And so, I mean, personally for me, I'm 25, I'm young. So but how I responded to that, I was like, well, maybe if I was older, I could see it in that lens, but right now it's just kind of too difficult because she's taken like too soon. So just being honest in your responses.
Yes.
You don't have to explain yourself. You never have to explain yourself. But in those moments when there's just a teaching moment that happens, that's my wing 8 that comes out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think, just that. And then the Bible verses always aren't so helpful
So I love that you're saying this because one of the things that I love that we're getting honest about this. Now, this is totally different. It's not about, me losing my mom to cancer or anything. But when I went through a breakup from my significant other of 4.5 years, and it was a real struggle mentally.
Yeah.
And I just remember feeling like, I just was disposable. I wasn't worth fighting for, like all of these, thought wars that were waging in my mind. And one of the most unhelpful things that people said to me was, well, Jesus loves you and Jesus will fight for you. And honestly, Kayla, here's my flesh. I wanted to throat punch them because I'm like, okay, got it. I know that. But that has nothing to do with what's going on right now. Like that, I get that. But I'm talking about here on earth. I had a person that was my person and now I don't.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think too, just a good response is like, hey, I'm so sorry for literally what you're going through. Like, I can't imagine. Period.
Yes. Period.
That's all that's needed,
Yeah.
Well,
I think, and I always give people grace with that because I say, people that love you hate to see you in pain and they want to make it go away. And in order to make it go away, they say stupid things.
Yeah.
Yep. And they don't mean to.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
But it's a real thing. So,
yeah. So let me, thank you for being honest about that. Let me ask you this. So when you had these times when you were in the field, I guess that's how you refer to it, in the mission field of these 4-hour kind of moments where you were just laid bare, and I love your term available, where you were available when you came home and you started caregiving for your mom. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming you didn't have those 4-hour experiences.
No.
Okay. So tell us what you did you mentioned back when we started at the beginning of the show, you mentioned moments of beauty, finding moments of beauty. Mm-hmm. So, I wonder if you can speak to those moments, particularly when you were faced with darkness of seeing your mom decline, of maybe seeing her in pain, of not being able to help her, wanting to help her for sure, being very sad for her condition. Tell us about how you actively went about finding moments of beauty, and tell us the moments in which that was a challenge for you.
Right. Yeah. Well, one, I think in, how to say it? Yeah. I think what was helpful is as a caregiver, you have to think, okay, so I'm in the house all the time, all days of the week. but it would be really healthy. It would probably be really healthy for me to get out of the house at least once a week.
Mm-hmm.
And so thinking through that and what could I do that would be helpful.
Okay.
So I went to a pottery class once a week, and that was just like an outlet to really feel the clay with your hands. I'm no potter whatsoever.
Yeah.
Totally not. But it was just healing to like play with the clay or mold the clay. Remember, this clay came from dust. It came from dirt, and just that reality of like where, like this clay in the Lord's hands. But then, and we go through the fire. So it's just like a little powerful kind of moment to get to do that once a week. And from that time, I sculpted a new vision. And so this
really
a vision of, it's interesting because as you play with clay, therapists probably obviously know more about this than I do, but I think your emotions can come out in clay also.
Well, so the fascinating thing, just from a brain perspective, is that when you're working with clay, you're working with both hands. And when you're working with both hands, you're activating both sides of the brain simultaneously. And so what happens then is your right brain and your left brain are both activated so that the emotion, you're exactly right, so that the emotions and memories can come to the surface in a way that they don't otherwise.
Right. Yep. Yeah. And so I think for me in the journey of taking care of my mom, I felt like I was in an open water, like on a lake, a really big lake with like, sometimes I was in the boat, but the boat was just drifting. Other times I was literally like sitting on the bottom of the lake, is what it felt like. Just the overwhelmingness, and the whole uncertainty of timing. And that's very tiring when you don't know how long will continue to go on. And so in this clay class, I made my new vision. So it was a like crystal clear lake. And then I made like a canoe. And in the canoe, I had two people in it made from like wire sculpture. And one person was fishing in it. And then another person was pointing like down at the water where the fish were. And then I had sculpted mountains in the background. And then I also did like a wire tree sculpture.
Okay.
And so, I've been in counseling, so I was like, hey, this is what I did this week because we are doing like, your new vision, and this came out. And so just the reality that this is a season where you need to tie your boat up to the tree, and wait there under the tree, take shelter under the tree, stay there under the tree to rest, And then also, I had mountains too. And so we were talking about how now you're like on a journey headed to the mountains. So for me, mountains are powerful just because of like where I work overseas. And then I've always found such rest. And then even thinking through Mount Zion, like where all of this is headed to Jesus, back making their own things right. And so anyways, as, so I have that picture in my mind. So it's kind of like, Jesus, what do I need right now? And so just asking that question of, okay, I need to sit by the tree. Or, okay, I could go over to the other side of the lake and then get out and start walking.
Right.
So then as you're on this journey of walking, so I think near the end of my mom's sickness, I was kind of in this journey of walking, like towards the mountains. But it's just like, okay, what does it look like to look for the pool of cool water, like in the desert? Or what does it look like to look for the shade of tree? And so as you're going on your day, your caretaking journey day of having a medicine schedule and like running to get the little vomit pan and just like running all around. But what are those moments in the day where there is a rest, where there is a reprieve? So it's not, oh, I'm going to like go on my phone and look at Instagram. Restful time. It's like, no, I'm going to go outside and I'm going to smell my lavender plant.
Yeah. Right.
And so just thinking through those more sensory engaging, like your senses, because it really helps you be grounded when you're just in. Yeah. Really noticing like where your feet are at in the grass, walking around barefoot, so peaceful. And really taking note and going for a walk and looking at the flowers and just bringing yourself back into, okay, I'm here. Yeah. And beautiful things all around me. God sees me and he knows me, because during the days you're just so ingrained in making sure like that they're comfortable, whoever taking care of, that you can really lose sense of what you need. So that's like a word out of advice of finding the pools of cool water in the desert. And
and also, like you said, leaning in and not numbing. It's easy for us to pick up our phones and scroll through, Instagram or whatever, and we say, oh, it's a distraction. I need a distraction or whatever. But here's the other thing similar. So when I asked you a while back, like how do you create those moments when you don't have those 4-hour dedicated, sessions to kind of free your mind? I think what's really beautiful is that those 4-hour sessions, you made yourself available to God's direction, to finding those cool pools, right? But in your little 5-minute walks outside, you also made yourself available by refusing to numb out, by leaning in. And so I think that's a really cool lesson for us to learn, is that, we don't have to have 4-hour retreats. We don't have to have a week-long reset button. It can be a 5-minute barefooted walk in the grass.
Yep, totally. For sure.
That's awesome. So Kayla, I have a question for you, because you are 25 and you're so young and you're so wise, and I love it. I think God's given you a gift of wisdom. What would you say to somebody who says, you are 25, you should be out like living your life, like you're so concerned with all of this heavy stuff? What would you say to them?
Right. Well, I think along with that, because I've thought about that too, of, okay, I should like be doing my career, all this stuff. But in reality, when, I'm 40, 50, 60, I'll be at the peak of my career then. Everybody else has to care for their, elderly parents.
Right.
And so
wow, what perspective.
Yeah. And so just thinking through that of, I'm completely fine. I think there were moments where I was frustrated, because it's like, I want to do these things, but I can't, and I feel trapped, and you think it will never ever end, but it does end, and it will get better. And so I think it's, just recognizing that everything is for a season, for a time. And so, just having that perspective of when I am older, I will be free to do what the Lord has for me to do.
Yes. Wonderful. So Kayla, what's the plan for you to return to the field? Is there a plan right now?
Yeah, there's not really a plan yet, because the COVID cases are pretty high there currently.
Okay.
And still no like visas or flights or anything.
Okay.
Yep. So still waiting it out.
On hold and finding those pools of cool water while you're waiting.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Kayla, I close out the show asking every one of my guests this question. And I'd like to ask you to, if you could leave one truth with the people listening, both women and men now. We have a lot of men listening.
Yeah.
But if you could leave the listeners with one truth that you want them to remember when this show ends, what would that be?
Yeah, I think real simply, Jesus is a real man on a real throne who feels real things for you and for me. And so that's just a rooting and an anchoring piece that we can take with us on this journey.
My friend Kayla, what a sweet and honest soul. I'm so thankful that she decided to come on the show today. And I know that you've been encouraged and your life has been enriched just by listening to this young woman who, she's seen a lot and she's thriving in the thick of a lot right now for being 25 years old. And so I pray that if you are in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, that you take some wisdom from Kayla, that you look for those pools of cool water in whatever you are thriving in the thick of right now. And because you've been encouraged by Kayla's words, would you please pay it forward and share this episode with a friend or family member who you know needs to learn to look for beauty amidst their worst fears and maybe needs to be introduced to the person of Jesus, as Kayla describes him as a real man on a real throne. As always, my friends, if you'd like to receive Thriving Thought text messages 3 times per week, straight from me to you to your cell phone, all you need to do is text the word THRIVE, THRIVE, to 540-369-2139. I'd love to invite you to be a part of that community. It is a super engaging and fun time. You get to know me a little bit better, and I get the opportunity to know you and encourage you. So until next time, my friends, share this episode, rate the show 5 stars if you're an Apple Podcast user, and remember always to speak truth over the lies so that you can thrive in any and every circumstance.